It's been a dream for a long time, and the reason that I suppose wanted to do it is that as I got to about 40, I started to ask myself what time I had left and what I really wanted to do with the rest of my life. The last thing I wanted to do was to wake up one day in a hospital bed at 70 years of age thinking, I nearly built a 40-foot boat and went blue water cruising, but, well, I just didn't seem to get the time to do it. Well, I started sailing when I was 11 years of age. It started with my father taking an interest to buy a small boat for the family. I can remember back to those days when I was still at school, tramping round the marshes of the East Coast, looking at wrecks of boats. Well, that's what they appear to be anyway, wrecks of boats. One in particular was in a place called West Mersey on the East Coast. It was yellow, I seem to remember. And we went to see this thing, and my dad obviously took a great deal of interest in it. And I think he would have bought it had it not been for when the tide came in, because as the tide came in, it actually came into the boat as well. And from that moment onwards, I think my father started to learn something about buying boats and what not to buy. But we spent a lot of weekends tramping around various creeks and marshes looking at second-hand boats, and eventually he bought one. And from then onwards we took up sailing. The first boat was a small 18-foot open dinghy. In those days, sailing was very much self-taught. There was no rules or regulations that we had to worry about. And we enjoyed ourselves because of the freedom, I think, of just doing what we wanted to do and sail where we wanted to go. We were probably very dangerous in what we were doing, but nevertheless, as a family, we enjoyed it. It was very, very good. And I remember the days very well.
We were so naive, and we didn't know anything much about it. We were learning, you know. We were sailing down the Thames estuary, and the Navy had got a frigate anchored off there. And we went all the way down this frigate, bumping along the side of it. And on the deck there was an inspection going on. But we managed in the end to claw our way off it with the oars pushed aside and got away. But it was a terrible old boat, this was. Yeah, we had lots of fun like that.
So even in this small 18-footer, we were sailing as far as Ramsgate, up the River Medway, up the east coast to the River Mersey, the River Blackwater, and it was a very rough and ready affair. But from then onwards, my dad started to get a little bit anxious about getting something a bit bigger, and he eventually bought a fiberglass hull called a Snapdragon 23, made by Thames Marine. My brother and I helped him finish that off and fit it out, and that really extended our cruising area to France, Belgium and Holland, where we had about 6 or 7 years of sailing. But again, without any rules, regulations or any training, we managed to do this just by teaching ourselves. So it was good. Well, the first boat that I actually fitted out myself was a Elizabethan 23, and that took me 2 years to fit out. And it was a lovely little boat, but I suppose as you grow older you want things bigger and better. The last boat I had, which is a twister, and again I bought the hull and deck of that, and that took 3 years and 2 weeks to complete. And even before I'd finished the twister, I was looking at the plans for the current boat, So I suppose I've been planning this boat for near on 20 years. I obviously needed somewhere big enough to build the boat. I spent the best part of 12 months looking for a suitable premises near where I live, knocking on farmers' doors to find a barn big enough. One day somebody told me about a barn close to work that might be suitable. One lunchtime I walked around and sure enough there was this huge barn with 3-phase power, water, everything that I could possibly want. Fortunately, the farmer, who was retired, was only too willing to let me have it. I suppose by fitting out a boat, apart from saving some money, it's enabling me to demonstrate that I can actually do something entirely on my own. I suppose throughout my career it's always been engineering, and I think that has put me in good stead for carrying out boat building. Building a boat yourself means that you are responsible for all aspects of it. The design, the purchasing, the making, the commissioning, everything. And I think this is one way of proving to my parents and the family that I am capable of doing something that a lot of other people perhaps wouldn't be capable of. And that gives me a bit of a buzz and a kick. I suppose since I left school I've always enjoyed working with wood. It has a natural texture. I had this ambition to always have a boat with a teak deck. I bought about £2,000 worth of teak, cutting it down into 2-inch wide planks. Also each plank had to be drilled to take the screws, which are self-tappers, into the fiberglass deck. And there are 2,500 of those, so that took quite a long time. And each hole through the teak plank had to be counterbored to take a wooden plug, because you can't see the stainless steel screws on the deck. Also each plank had to be bent round to the shape of the hull. You have to start from the outside and then gradually work inwards, which makes it a lot more difficult to push each plank outwards against the next. This whole operation took the best part of 9 months to complete. But I had to number every single plank with a code and take them all up again in preparation for putting down the rubber mastic on the glass deck. Finally, once all the planks had been fastened down, the last operation was to put the black rubber mastic that forms the waterproof joint in between each plank. Unfortunately, it goes everywhere. My overalls was covered with black mastic, the tools, everything. Dreadful mess. But after about a week or so, it cures to a sort of fairly hard rubber, so that you can use then a belt sander to sand it all off to a lovely smooth finish, which gives it that nice crisp black line that's between each plank. The main problem has been having to deal with so many different companies, suppliers and people. It's been as close to running your own business as you could possibly get. It's also put a lot of pressure between myself and Fiona. Poor Fiona's had to put up with my whinging, moaning, smelly clothes, late evenings, early mornings, everything. And throughout that time she's had to do all of the maintenance on the house, the garden, the shopping, the cooking. I think she's been a real brick. So it's been very difficult over 7 years between us. Something I wouldn't recommend anybody to go through. I've fitted the boat out with what I think is a well-equipped boat from the point of view of navigation equipment. This is the navigation station, and here we have both DC panel and AC panel with the windlass control and a wind generator control panel, which is a generator that charges the batteries up. On this side is the engine control with meters metering water tanks, diesel tank and a waste tank. And in front of me is the main navigation instruments with the satellite navigators and VHF. On the actual chart table itself is going to be a laptop computer, so instead of paper charts I'm going to have electronic charts, so that when it's hooked into the satellite navigators and the autopilot you can actually trace your position as it's going across the electronic chart. As I approach the launch date, I'm having mixed feelings about leaving this barn where I've been building the boat, because it's been my home for 7 years. The key moment was the first time, I suppose, that I operated a winch and actually see it moving millimetre by millimetre forward. It's a very strange feeling, but very exciting. At the beginning, when one of the back wheels came off the steel plate, I was getting very concerned because I could see the back wheel was actually sinking further and further into the ground, and I could see that we were going to have to abandon the whole haul out and get a hydraulic tow jack and lift up the back wheel. Is it going? Yeah. With a bit of effort on the winch, managed to pull it back onto the plate, which obviously I was very pleased about. And the very last thing at about 6:30 last night was actually disconnecting the 240 volt power from the boat. And it tickled me because I thought it was a bit like cutting the umbilical cord of the boat, and all of its life support system had then disappeared. So now when she's out of the barn it's entirely on its own power, which is nice. It's 18 inches, 17 inches, 16 and a half, yeah, that's it. Well, obviously it looks very different. The thing that surprises me is that she looks bigger than it did in the barn, and even more attractive in my eyes. I'm beginning to take a certain degree of fondness towards it now, yes. Well, the boat's finished, Dad. What do you think of it?
Well, what a load of rubbish, Trevor. I thought you'd done better than that. No, I think it's marvellous. Yeah, fantastic, marvellous. I'm very proud of you. Very proud.
Very recently, when I was looking through some old LPs at home, I came across a film that I once saw called Dr. Zhivago, and in that there was the name Lara's Theme. I knew that that had to be the name for the boat, Lara.
7 years ago, as Trevor said, at a Wine Society meeting, he announced he was going to build a boat. I'm sure that everybody here today we're deeply envious of Trevor's achievement. Such a visible achievement. To be responsible for creating such a beautiful craft must be a deeply satisfying feeling. Trevor's dream has become a reality, and not many of us are lucky enough. But of course, this particular dream has involved many hours of hard work and effort and lots of support and encouragement from Fiona. And now the best is yet to come. Fiona and Trevor sailing off to the Med and soaking up the sun and lots of G&Ts on the poop deck, or whatever else you call it. So it gives me great pleasure to name this boat Lara. May God bless her and all who sail it.
Cheers, everybody!
I feel very anxious because it's a big day in the sense that somebody's got to take it up the motorway to Liverpool. The real bit, the crunch, comes when the crane arrives and we've got to sling the boat and lift it actually onto the low loader and get it out of the farm and onto the road. It's the lifting of the boat onto the low loader that gives me a bit of concern. Only because it's 14 tonnes and lifting boats with slings is always a little bit of a risky business. The weather unfortunately is against us, but the fact it's going to be windy and possibly some snow concerns me a little bit. Seeing it lifted up in the air and the trolley pushed out of the way and the boat lowered onto the trailer. Once that boat has been lowered onto the trailer, I shall sigh a very, very big relief. And all the anxiety over the last few days will maybe pass away. But I think I've done enough preparation to give me some confidence that it'll go okay. I sincerely hope so. Then the second anxious moment would be following it in the car all the way to Liverpool. You never know what's going to happen. Somebody pull out in front of the vehicle, or the guy have to brake very severely, so that's a concern. When it gets to Liverpool, I don't have any concerns at all because there's a hoist there that is very used to lifting boats in and out of the water. We're doing it all the time. It's going to be pretty straightforward. I don't have any worries about that whatsoever. You're always worried about whereabouts it's going to float. Is it going to float on its marks? Is it going to be down at the head, down at the stern, on one side or on the other side? So I should be very anxious to look at where it floats in the water. Boats are never happy unless they're in the water. And when it actually went into the water for the first time, the relief and the happiness, it was really ecstatic. It really is something very special that only perhaps a person that's got a boat, that has built a boat, can really feel. It was fabulous, it really was fabulous. And to motor away and just pop around the lock was also fabulous. To feel it underway, moving along at a steady 2 or 3 knots, really felt so very good indeed, smashing. I don't think I'll sleep much because I'm still very excited. It's my first night on board. I'll be on my own. Everybody's gone home, and there's a friend who's got exactly the same boat as mine, just 2 slots away. He's coming back at 9 o'clock, and I think we're going to have a few beers, and I'll probably get a little bit sozzled, and I hope that will make me sleep very well. I'm very, very relieved and very happy. It didn't go quite as well as I anticipated. It took a lot longer to actually get the mast upright, and I obviously underestimated how much weight in the mast there was and the fine angle between the ropes and the top of the mast. The next step, having seen the mast have a slight lean on it already, is to make off the end terminals on the stainless steel stays, so that I've got something very strong and secure holding the mast upright. Once I've got 2 stays on, I shall feel pretty happy, but there are 12 to do in all, and that's going to take a good couple of days before I'm entirely satisfied that all 12 stays are cut to length properly and the ends made off properly and the whole thing bolted up securely. The boat becomes quite a personal item, particularly when you're sailing it at sea. It takes some time before you get used to the boat that you're sailing, and I envisage that this is going to take me the best part of 6 months of sailing before I've got to know all of its little funny ways and the 2 of us are in harmony. But that's another aspect of going off blue water cruising that I'm looking forward to, is getting to know a new boat. It's like, in a way, getting to know a new person. You're exploring the different behavioural things about a boat as you would about a person. I've got to be sure that the boat is going to look after me in any sort of weather. Well, the second half of the ambition is to actually go blue water cruising, and that's very much an unknown because it's sailing across seas which can be very dangerous. It's exploring new people, places. It's something I'm really excited about doing, but obviously quite worried at the same time because of the dangers that can be in front of us. Nevertheless, I'm really looking forward to it, and of course it won't be the end of this dream until I've completed this trip.